rebel, and no one can ever change me, 'cause I was born to be a rebel, and no one can ever change me. To be a rebel.
Welcome back, VC. Recent finds video. I was born to be a rebel, and no one can ever change I. Recent reissue on the Shella Records label out of Toronto. Tune originally recorded in 1975. The artist is called Rathadamn. Very obscure. Released one song on a compilation that came out several years ago called Glory, Dominion, Majesty, Power. Compilation of sides for the Half Moon label out of Toronto. This tune is called Rebel, backed with I Was Born to be a Rebel. Very rare tune, 1975, Toronto Roots. Original of this will run you many hundreds of dollars. There's one for sale on Discogs right now, north of $700. I think someone's having a bit of a chuckle over that price, but not one you're going to find in your average everyday record store. Brand new, hot off the press from Shella Records out of Toronto. Some more recent finds. A couple of soul ones. Mel Carter. Two by him I found in a thrift store. All of a Sudden My Heart Sings, Imperial label. These are both early to mid 60s. Mel Carter was a Sam Cooke protege. Hold Me, Thrill Me, Kiss Me. These were some of his big hits. Kind of big voiced, kind of soul crossed with a bit of easy listening, bit of show tunes, that kind of ballads kind of sound. Found one by the Staple Singers, my local thrift store. This is one called This Time Around, featuring Mavis Staples. Actually, the first time she was credited under her own name on a Staples record. This is the Purple Stax label from their revival in the late 70s. These were actually songs that were recorded in their heyday in the early 70s for the Stax label, and it has that classic sound, those kind of message songs like Come and Go With Me. But with a little bit of added remixing and instrumentation. Doesn't really sound too out of place though. Classic stuff. Mavis front and center on lead vocal in most songs. This is one not in the greatest condition, but I was pretty happy to come across it in the thrift store. The Best of Nina Simone. It's one of many compilations bearing a similar title. This is one from 1970 on RCA. Got real mix of stuff here, from soul jazz to a bit of funk, some pop covers, some show tunes. Kind of covers the gamut of her career. But the stunning song for me on here is Why, The King of Love Is Dead, which was her musical reaction to the assassination of Martin Luther King Jr. and her shock and grief is all right there in the grooves. It's just incredible. I'm going to leave links to a few of these songs in the comments as usual. Speaking of ladies of the 60s, I found three very nice thrift finds all at the same time. Dusty Springfield, Stay a While, I Only Want to Be With You. A couple of her big hits. On the Mercury Wing imprint. I think this is a later 60s pressing of this. Originally came out probably early to mid 60s. I think this is her second LP. I found the first one, again on a later pressing, on my recent funk and soul and disco thrift haul. Very nice shape on this one. Very happy to have that. Now, if only the thrift gods would send me a copy of Dusty in Memphis, I'd be happy. Marianne Faithfull, Faithful Forever, mono copy. On the red London label, in very decent shape. This is her in her early kind of folk pop phase. Those kind of quavery, waif-like vocals. And the big one of those ladies' finds was the Astrud Gilberto album. Mono UK pressing. You can see it's got that flip back cover on Verve. Bit of cover wear, but otherwise very decent shape. And as a bonus, I found, where did I put it? On a later visit to the same store, I found the single of The Girl from Ipanema, which of course featured Astrud Gilberto on vocals and established her career and kicked off the bossa nova craze in North America. So very pleased to find this one. This was a kind of an unusual one I found. Almost didn't buy it. It's not in the best condition, but I thought I'd give it a chance. It's pretty obscure. Never heard of it before. Meet the Bob Smiths. You can tell this is kind of some early rock and roll stuff, bit of country on here on the Rusticana label. Can't find out too much information on them, but they were based out of Quebec, province of Quebec, Canada. Early rock and roll style. You can hear a lot of the influences of kind of the teen pop guys, a lot of the Sun Records guys, all in there. I'll give you a couple of needle drops on here just for fun.
I wanna be alone with you tonight, just you and I. Beneath the stars so bright, I'll hold your hand. With you tonight. Dump your little heartbeat for me.
And the last track on here is called Tribute to Bobby Hall. Does it get more Canadian than that?
Here's to Bobby Hall, may his name forever stand. He'll always be remembered throughout this wide, wide land. From Foy and Eastside, and quickly rose to fame, leading exponent of our national game.
Our national game.
Example of sportsmanship as he, every young Canadian boy.
So kind of fun stuff on here. There's a tribute to Buddy Holly on there, on the other side as well. You can see kind of where these guys are getting their influences from. Moving on, found this one, Geno. This is another Canadian one, kind of a disco producer extraordinaire type guy. Got some kind of, it sounds very contemporary, some of these tracks, like it could have been done by in the 1990s by groups like I guess Thievery Corporation, a lot of those electronic groups. Sounds very forward thinking to me, some of that disco. There's another blind buy here, Brazil. This is by Nestor Amaral and his Continentals. Nestor Amaral was a Brazilian musician, worked in Argentina quite a bit, I believe. Came to the U.S. with Carmen Miranda and started working in Hollywood. Acted in appeared in a couple of films. This is a LP he put out. Just give you a quick taste of that as well. Kind of easy listening, but pretty decent stuff. So some fun stuff there. Moving on, this is one I have to thank Paul, ex-Junkie NL for. I finally picked up a James Last record, Well Kept Secret. I used to see this around all the time until he tipped me off that this was one of the few funky James Last records. And indeed it is. It is a nice jazz funk little mover and groover. Got some nice players on here. Who you got there? I think Tom Scott is, yeah, Tom Scott on there. Very nice stuff. Of course, as soon as he tipped me off to that one, they dried up. Saw all the other James Last LPs. Still looking for that Voodoo Party one. Getting into a few record store cheap bin finds. One Big Happy Family. This is a reggae one. See that beautiful cover art here. These are all the artists on there. Burning Spear right there. You got Bob Marley here, flanked by Carlton and Family Man Barrett, bass drummer and bass player in the Wailers. It's on the Mango label, and this is a sampler of Island Records artists at the time. Not much here I didn't have elsewhere. I think the title song by Jacob Miller and the Inner Circle Band is not included anywhere else. to my knowledge. There's a live version, live steel pulse tune on here, which probably isn't on the LP. Johnny Bristol, Hang On In There Baby, cover kind of beat, but record is pretty good shape. I think that was $2 or $3 for this one. Nice soul there. Another cheap bin one, Sergio Mendes Trio in the Brazilian bag. This is just prior to his work with Brazil 66, Capital Rainbow. It's Brazilian music, more in a jazzy flavor here, with vocals by Wanda da Sá, Bud Shank on here, flute and sax. Finally got that Armadillo, Emerson, Lake and Palmer. Always see this in the VC. I never managed to get a copy. It's pretty good stuff. This is music for a dystopian post-apocalyptic future where cybernetic mutated animals roam around and battle each other, or something like that. I'm just kidding. It's good stuff. And finally picked up this one, the Woodstock Soundtrack. A bit of ringware on there. This was $3. Got all 3 LPs in very nice shape on the Cotillion label. I've seen this around for years, always see it around, but usually just hammered, just beat up. This was actually the first copy I've been able to come across in very decent shape. And very cheap as well. So happy to finally pick that up. A couple of mail order finds last off. A reggae one, The Gay Lads, Understanding. This is an album I wasn't familiar with. I bought something else online, and then I decided to combine shipping and pick up something else with it, and the seller had this one, so I gave it a listen online, and it was definitely a good one. It's a UK pressing on the Ballistic label, which is a label I am familiar with. Everything I've heard on there is quality. The Gay Lads were a group that started out kind of in the ska days, went through all the different phases of Jamaican music, recorded for Studio One quite a bit. By the early 70s, the group had kind of disintegrated, with B.B. Seaton and Winston Stewart going solo, 2 of the main singers. The 3rd remaining original member, Maurice Roberts, recruited a new version of the group with 2 new singers, and put out this album, which was mainly produced by Roy Cousins of the Royals. So just gorgeous roots harmonies on here, late 70s on this one. There's only 6 songs on here. They're all extended mixes, disco style it's called. The title track, Love and Understanding, is excellent, but there's no weak songs on here. Just sublime harmonies in the Channel 1 rockers sound of the era. Last up, I sold some records and decided to get Zam Rocked. So I picked up the Zam Rock compilations, brand new from Now Again Records, and I actually bundled them up with the CD versions. Get a bit cheaper price on each that way, and it's nice to have the CD for listening on the road. You get the full booklet with all the information on here. It's going to be, I haven't listened to all of these, even the reading is challenging, and they look really handsome as well. So I got Volume 1 and Volume 2 of Zam Rock. I haven't listened to all these. Going to take a while to digest it all. CD version. And I also got Wells Fargo, who were not from Zambia, but were from Zimbabwe. Now, both countries had been part of Rhodesia. One was Northern Rhodesia and one was Southern, both ruled by the British. They became independent at different times and pursued different directions, and these reissues kind of chronicle the rock scene that grew in these countries post-independence, as the young musicians were struggling to find their own identity, as well as assimilating influences from the rock and roll coming from North America and England, and influences like the Rolling Stones, Elvis, and the heavier groups like Deep Purple and those kind of things. So very interesting reissues from Now Again Records. So that's what I've got for you today, guys. Hope you're doing well out there. A couple of shout outs. Check out my buddy Andre, the Reluctant Collector. James Griffiths, of course. Take care, everybody. Cheers.